And please open the Maya as it is. Currently, my Maya is okay. And now we can start. So yesterday we did a bit of UV editing already, so that's why your workspace might look a little bit different if we compare it to the yesterday's morning. So that's something what we want to fix now, is that we want to reset our current workspace, and you can find this workspace up here, right corner workspace. There is drop down menu where you should press this arrow and then select Maya Classic, which will transform your workspace for the default. But this is actually not all. After you have changed the workspace for Maya Classic, which I prefer, you should uh, open the drop down menu again and then press here reset current workspace. It's on the bottom of the drop down menu. This will assure that your workspace is the default, and now everything will look same as in my Maya. Okay, quick recap about Maya's UI. So the workspace button up here, right corner, is the most important button for you, or most important options. So you can reset your Maya wherever you go. Then the another important thing is this toolbar up here on the left corner, where you can find file, edit, create menu, display, windows, edit mesh, and etc. Then under the file you can find this modeling and rigging and animation menu. So this is the toolbar selection. By opening this drop down menu where it says currently modeling, you can find rigging, you can find animation, you can find effects. So as I said yesterday, Maya has variety of tools because Maya can do a whole 3D pipeline through that. It's impossible to fit all the tools on the same view simultaneously. So that's why we have this selection here, what we want to do. And during this modeling session, we want to use only modeling tools, so that's why we left the modeling on. And then the next one here is the shelf, which has lots of icons and different tabs. These are the same tools what you can access through this upper menu, but this has only images, which kind of helps you to get what the tool is doing. And it doesn't matter if you use these icons or these upper options, they do basically the same thing. And at this point we could actually create simple geometry while I go through with the transformation tools. Uh, and you can press just here on the poly modeling tab. If you press this cube, it will automatically create cube in the origin of the grid. The other option was that you come up here to the creation tab or the creation drop down menu, come to the polygon primitives, and from here select the cube. The only difference between the polygon tab and this create drop down menu is that you can get options opened here by pressing that small square. And with these options we can modify the scale. For example, if I type here 5, 5 and 5 and then press create, I can get bigger cube. Of course, I can use transformation tools for this, but if I want to be exact, this is the better way to create cubes. And the next thing what I'm going through is the transformation tools. So here on the left under the poly modeling tab, there is a bunch of icons, and the icon here up left, the cursor, it's a selection tool, which hotkey is Q. This Q was important hotkey because Maya always want to keep every tool that you will select or use active, and only thing how to deactivate the tool that you are currently using is just tapping Q, like quit. So that's something good to keep on your mind, because if your tool isn't working as you want or your cursor isn't working as you want in Maya, you have to just tap Q to quit or cancel the earlier operation what you are doing. Then we have lasso selection tool, which is quite handy when we are in the edit mode, selecting vertices, selecting edges, selecting faces. And then there is also paint selection tool, which is basically brush selection tool. Okay, then there is move tool, as you remember. Now if you click your cube active and press W or click this icon here, you will see the gizmo which appears in the middle of the cube. And now if you are grabbing, for example, this red arrow, you can move the cube x-axis wise. So the gizmo has arrow for every axis and they are color coded. So the green arrow is y-axis, blue arrow is z-axis, and then red arrow is x-axis. And if you just grab here on the light blue cube in the middle of the gizmo, you can move your cube freely. This is something what I wouldn't recommend you to do if you want to lose your cube. Don't lose your cube. I mean that your transformation won't be exact if you are using this middle gizmo or the middle part of the gizmo. Then the next tool is rotation tool. If you are pressing E, you will get this kind of gizmo, and just by clicking and holding your mouse left button down, you can rotate your cubes. Currently, our rotation tool is set on the world space. As I showed you yesterday, if we come top of our tool and then double click it, we can open tool settings, and here in the tool settings for the transformation tools, you are able to select axis orientation of that tool, and if the tool or what axis tool should follow. Currently rotation tool is set on the world space, but if I change it for the object base, you can see the difference on the axis. So now I change it back to the world space and it aligns to the grid, and after, if I change it to the object space, it will change so that it aligns with the axis of the cube. So this is something what you should remember. If your rotation tool is looking weird, you can open tool settings and then reset those or change the axis orientation to follow the axis what you want. So either world or either object own axis. And then the last transformation tool here on the left is the scale tool. I will open it as well. The scale tool has same orientation settings as the rotation tool and the transformation tool. So currently it's set on object, but then you can change it to the world. And it has as well 3 axes from where to scale. So we can scale our cube on x-axis, z-axis, or y-axis. Maya always turns the last selected transform axis to yellow. So if I click the blue, it changes yellow, and then if I click the red one, it changes yellow. It doesn't change the axis, it only changes the visual look of that axis, so you shouldn't be worried about that. And then we have this fourth square here in the middle of the gizmo, and that scales your geometry on every axis simultaneously. So if you want your axis or your scale to be same on every axis, you should use this middle one. And then there is one handy trick with the scale tool. If you are selecting one axis, for example this z-axis, and pressing Ctrl down, the scale tool is scaling your object on every other 2 axes except the z-axis. And if I'm changing now that I'm scaling the y-wise and pressing Ctrl down, I can see that now it's scaling on that wise. And then if I want to scale, pressing Ctrl down, x-wise, it's possible. This is something which is really handy in some cases. So this is something what you should remember. So pressing Ctrl down, you get more options for your scaling. Uh, Next thing about the UI, we had here on the upright corner this icon where is like three papers stacked and it's channel box, and channel box shows number wise uh, your transformations or your geometric transformations. So first of all there is of course translate, and here on the translate you can type numbers, exact numbers, if you want to modify your cube. For example, if I type here translate y 10 and press enter, I can move my cube uh, position 10 on y-axis. I usually prefer to use these exact values because those are easier to remember, and that's why I usually type those numbers here. And then if you want to zero out something, you can just select all of these values here just by dragging on mouse's left and holding it down. When they are highlighted blue, you know that you can modify those numbers. And now if I type here 0, my rotations are 0, and so on. The next thing uh, about Maya's UI was the outliner, which you can activate from here. Down left corner you have these 4 icons, and the lowest one is the outliner, and it pops up from the left and it's added to our scene view like this. And now you can see that in the outliner we have this cube and another cube, p cube 1, p cube 2, which means that in the outliner we can see all of our cubes, and we can also rename objects in our scene. If I double click my p cube and I get blinking cursor, which means that I can type now, so this will be kuutio 1, and then just pressing enter I can apply that name for it, and then just double clicking p cube 2 and I will oh, now it's kuutio 1, and then I will rename this p cube 2 to kuutio 2. One thing about Maya is that it's very sensitive about naming. So if you have 2 objects under the same name, you will end up with the problems. At some point, it doesn't necessarily happen during the modeling, but when you are end up in the rendering phase, or you are end up doing the final pictures from your model, and then you have some animation added there, on the 80% of the cases it will break down because it's built that way that there shouldn't be any same names or naming conventions under the same scene. This is something good to remember. This will save lots of time from you if you just start to do good naming conventions from the start. And then the most important hotkey after Command Z and Command S in Maya was the spacebar. If I'm pressing spacebar just quickly, tapping, I can open my quadro view, which is really helpful when we are modeling. You can see that we have top Y here, front Z, side X, and if I hover my cursor on top of each view and then just tapping spacebar, I can jump right into that view. And if I jump back to the perspective view, how I can rotate the scene, I'm just pressing Alt down. Here I can go over or turn the whole scene. And if I'm pressing Alt and mouse's middle button, I can tumble around. And then of course, scrolling mouse's wheel, I get the stepped zoom. And pressing Alt and mouse's right button, I get the smooth zoom. Here, if I press spacebar again and then jump, for example, for the front Z, and now if I'm pressing Alt and trying to turn around, I cannot do that because this is orthographic view, so it means that we are looking straight to the object. So these orthographic views are unturnable. Only thing what we can do here is the tumble. So if we're pressing Alt down and then mouse's middle button, it's okay. And of course we can zoom. Okay, pressing spacebar again and then just tapping spacebar and jumping into the perspective view. The one thing what we didn't do yesterday was creating new cameras and applying that to the view. We can do that because it's useful to have on cameras sometimes here in Maya. So the another purpose of spacebar was pressing and holding it down so we can get opened the same creation menus, same tool sets what we have up here. But when we are on Maya's scene view, it's much more convenient to open these options and tools from here than going up and just click those many times. It's not very useful. So from here I will find this create and I come down here to the cameras and then I select just camera. And now I can see that I have new camera icon in the middle of the grid. And as well, you can see that we have camera here on, or camera 1 here on our outliner. I will rename this camera 1 to be my bar camera. And now I have problem. How to see what the bar camera sees. And still keep this perspective view turned on. So first of all, I will press the spacebar so I can jump to the quarter view. And at this point, I come this top Y view and I open it. And then I come up here to the panels and click panels and then perspective. And from the perspective view, I can find the bar camera. And if I click it, I can see that my view is changing. And currently, I can see that down here it says bar camera, which means that now the camera or the view of the bar camera is active. And it means that we are inside of our new camera. And the funny thing here is that we can now use it and move it as we were moving it, or as we were moving with the perspective view. And I can move my back camera for this position, and then I just can tap spacebar to see my back camera and my perspective view and my side X. And the thing is, for this scene, I would like to also see the top Y, what I saw earlier, but I don't really need this front Z view. So basically I can jump here to the front Z and press spacebar. I'm on the front Z view, and then I come again here into the panels view, open it, but this time I don't want to see the perspective camera because there is only perspective view and back camera, but I come on top of the orthographic and then I select here top. So from here I can now change that I have the top Y view here. So this is something really useful to remember, that always if your cameras are messed up or you lose some camera, you come here into the panel section on top of your 3D view and then search either perspective or the orthographic, and then you can restore your views. Of course, you can restore your views by going back workspace and reset current workspace. But actually it didn't restore the views. So if you modify your views, go to the panels, perspective or orthographic. Then my outliner is open, my back camera is selected, and my view is on my back camera. I want to show you one more menu where we can modify our back camera. So we come up here under the Maya Classics. There is this between this small stick figure and the hammer with the lines. There is this section called Attribute Editor. When you have selected your back camera or which camera ever, and you open your Attribute Editor, you notice that you get options for your camera. And these options are basically the same what you have with the real life camera. So focal length, of course, we can change that, for example, to 70. So it's more like tele lens than the wide angle. And if you are working with, for example, VFX images or some post production, here is the point, or here is the uh, section what you should modify to match the real life camera to your digital camera, and that's how you get uh, uh, even more near the photorealism on doing VFX. So this is a good place to remember. So attribute editor up here next to the small stick figure. Uh, and then I'm jumping back to my perspective view by pressing spacebar and selecting my Kuutio 2. And if you lose something in your 3D space, this is the fourth important button, or the hotkey in Maya. And I think it's same as in Unity. You just press F, which means frame. So you can select objects here in the outliner and then press F. You select your object outliner, then you hover your cursor on top of the 3D space and or the 3D scene and then press F, and Maya will find the object for you. So if you lose something from here, you can, or with this F, you can find it. And before we start our mock modeling, there is this third good toolset what we can still look into. So the hammer and the cube up here under the workspace options menu opens modeling toolkit for us. And in the modeling toolkit, there is lots of good tools quickly available. And the important tools up here are these component selections. So now I have my Kuutio 1 active, and then if I press vertex selection here, I'm able to select vertices from my Kuutio 1. So you can see that when the vertex selection is active, there is pink dots on the corner of my cube. And now I'm modifying the cube, and it's no more a cube, it's some modified poly. So basically we changed from the object mode to edit mode by selecting these icons. Then if I want to modify my edge, which is two vertex combined, I can do that. And then if I want to select my face, which is 4 edges and 4 vertices combined, I can do that. And I'm selecting these components of the mesh by clicking mouse left. And then if I want to use these selections simultaneously, I just click here multi-component, and now I can select every component with the same mode. Like this. Then I was able to create more geometry by selecting this extrude down here. If I now click the extrude and I have my face selected, I can pull out the new face. And I can do that as well for the edge. If I select the edge and press extrude, which hotkey was Ctrl E, not Command E, Ctrl E, I can pull out the face. And the extrude again. Then the second important tool from this modeling toolkit was the bridge. For bridging something, I need to actually do the hole. So the another way to change the face selection or the edge selection or the vertex selection is come on top of your mesh and press mouse's right down, and you can get this kind of menu when you hold your mouse right down, and from here you can select face or vertex or edge. If you select face and then press delete, you can delete the whole face. If I want to delete edge, I come to the edge selection, I select the edge, but the delete doesn't work. So if you want to delete edge, you have to press shift down, and then you have to press mouse's right down and press delete edge, and it doesn't delete it. Well, that's strange. But okay, if we want to get rid of this, I just delete it with the face selection. So delete works with the whole objects. If I select Qtio 1 on object space, I can delete it, and then I can as well delete faces if I'm on the edit mode. One good tip for modeling or polymodeling is that when you are doing extrusion, if I now have selected the face and I press extrude, I have to pull this out right away. I cannot press multiple times extrude because then I'm just stacking geometry. And if I'm stacking geometry, it will cause problems later on because it will mess the faces, it will mess the UVs, and well, it will mess the rendering. So one thing what we are trying to avoid when we are modeling stacked geometry. I'm later on I'm showing how to clean up stacked geometry, but rule to remember, never ever uh, left geometry uh, stacked, and don't do unnecessary extrusions. Uh, the next task is that you go to the file, and from the file you will open a new scene, and don't save this scene. Don't save this scene, and for the next half an hour you have time to try and create by yourself a mock or a GUP, and after that we are modeling that together. But for rehearse, try to model and try to remember the tools what we used yesterday and today, and create some kind of mock.